A king's revenge. Jordan goes on the offensive, launching airstrikes as retaliation just days after terrorists kill one of that country's hero pilots, burning him alive. Right now, the international hotspot, Jordan. Hello, I'm Michelle Franklin in New York. ABC's Alex Marquardt joining us now from Amman, Jordan, to give us the latest. Alex, new developments today in Jordan. Give us the latest on what you've heard.
Hi there, Michelle. Yeah, early this afternoon, Jordan said that it carried out airstrikes against ISIS targets. A short while later, we saw a bit of an air show here in the Jordanian skies. Here in Amman, jets flying very low, as well as in the town of Karak, which is where the Jordanian pilot, Lieutenant Muaz al-Qasasbeh, was from, and that's where his family has been welcoming mourners in their mourning tent. And that's where the Jordanian king went today to pay his respects, to pay his condolences to the family. He reportedly told the father of the young Jordanian pilot that the mission that was carried out by the Jordanian Air Force today was in Raqqa, Syria. That's the northern Syrian city that has essentially become the de facto capital of ISIS, at least in Syria. The father then came out and told the family that this was where the mission took place. This is also where the pilot was believed to have been held since he was shot down in September. The Jordanian army has not confirmed that the strikes actually took place in Raqqa. And just recently, just now, we heard from an activist group that's based in Raqqa, an anti-ISIS activist group, I should say, that said that no strikes have actually taken place in Raqqa today. That the last ones were on Monday. So there's a little bit of confusion there, but the Jordanians are saying that they did carry out strikes against ISIS today, and this is obviously a response to that brutal execution of the young Jordanian pilot.
And is this Jordan taking action on its own? Is this part of the coalition? And have we heard any response from ISIS on whether or not these airstrikes have affected them?
Well, this is Jordan carrying out essentially a response to the execution. It's part of the wider coalition efforts. Every day we're seeing strikes by the coalition in Iraq and in Syria. The vast majority, around 80% of the more than 2,000 airstrikes have been carried out by the U.S. On ISIS targets both in Iraq and Syria. We have yet to hear any sort of response to these specific strikes from ISIS today. They've been relatively quiet. The kinds of things we've been seeing from ISIS since the execution video came out a few days ago was essentially words of support, gloating, if you will. There's a video that was released yesterday from Raqqa that showed people gathering around these big screens where this horrible video was being projected, some people cheering, some people shouting, "God is great." Interview with people as young as, say, 8, 9 years old, a young boy saying that he fully supports the, this execution in this manner. But we have not heard from ISIS since Jordan carried out these strikes. Again, they didn't say where they took place. One top Jordanian official only saying that it was that they were targeting ISIS in their hideouts. Michelle?
And King Abdullah vowing revenge, of course, for the death of this pilot. In addition to strikes, what else is Jordan planning, and how is it addressing the anger in its own country?
Well, the King of Jordan came out yesterday saying that the blood of this pilot will not be in vain, his death will not be in vain, and vowing what they called a harsh response. And so they came out immediately and executed 2 of their prisoners who were on death row, including the woman that ISIS had been wanting to trade for the Japanese journalist, if you remember. Her name was Rashawi. So they executed her right off the bat. Then the Jordanian king came back from the United States. We saw this strike today, but going forward, it's hard to say. The Jordanians have said that they will step up their efforts against ISIS. The Americans have said that they will redouble their efforts against ISIS, but have not indicated how that would actually take place. So you can imagine that Jordan would take on a greater role in the coalition, perhaps even, and this is just speculation, some sort of special forces operation on the ground, it's really impossible to say. But what is clear is that there has been an outpouring of not just grief, but all sorts of expression of anger, of horror, that this pilot was killed in this manner, being burned alive, that it was filmed in such a dramatic and awful way. And so there have been calls for revenge across Jordanian society, calls for blood. This has really been a unifying element. Jordan hasn't seen the same sort of drama upheaval that we've seen across the Arab world over the past 4 years during the so-called Arab Spring. It's been relatively stable, but there have been growing gaps. The monarchy has been less and less stable. With the rise of ISIS, we've also seen the rise of extremist elements here in Jordan. But this murder was so awful and the way that it was carried out, that this is really something that has brought Jordanians together and really the Muslim world together against ISIS. People across the Muslim world condemning it. ABC News spoke to a top jihadist, an ultra-conservative Muslim cleric here in Jordan who has ties to ISIS and to Al-Qaeda, and he condemned it, saying it was not something that can be condoned by Muslims. The top authority in Sunni Islam, Al-Azhar, in Egypt has condemned it as well, going so far as to say that ISIS militants should be killed and dismembered.
How important is that for leaders in those regions to speak out?
Well, it's extremely important, but it's not unexpected. I mean, this is something that we've seen. This is not something we've seen before. It's so extreme that it's so easy for, it's expected that people come out and condemn this. And I think to some extent, to a large extent, ISIS has shot themselves in the foot, because when you see the other atrocities that they've carried out, the other executions that they've carried out, the beheading of American journalists, aid worker, British journalists, and the Japanese journalists as well, that sort of thing fuels, it not only horrifies much of the world, but it also fuels their recruitment for young, disenchanted Muslims to come and fight in their cause in Iraq and Syria. There's absolutely no way to defend this video, the immolation of this young Jordanian pilot. So this is not only a unifying thing here in Jordan, but across the Middle East.
And Alex, you mentioned the relative calm that Jordan has experienced up until now, and also about those jets flying out. What was it like to see the jets fly in or fly out of Jordan from your vantage point?
Well, this is extremely well choreographed. I mean, this was not just a response to the execution. This was a display by the Jordanian government and military for the Jordanian people to say, we've heard you, and now we're going to go out and take revenge on your behalf. And so they flew very low over that morning tent in Karak, but then they flew extremely low here in the center of Amman. I'm on the 14th floor of my hotel, and they were flying not too much higher and not too far from where I am. It was quite a display, and I'm actually quite annoyed with myself that I didn't have enough time to get my camera.
Tomorrow, of course, Friday, the Muslim holy day. What are plans there in Jordan?
Well, it was relatively quiet today, and life to some extent here in Jordan is getting back to normal. Friday, as you say, is the holiest day of the week, and people will go into the mosques for midday prayers. And we're expecting imams in mosques all across Jordan to not only give sermons that memorialize Lieutenant Kasasbeh, but also to condemn the way that he was killed, to say that this sort of murder is absolutely against the beliefs of Muslims and the Quran. And so it will be a day, we believe universally, about the young lieutenant and how to move forward. There could be some rallies in the streets, rallies of support. In the last few weeks, Jordanians really came together and were saying that Lieutenant Kasasbeh was a son of all of Jordan. So we could see some people in the streets. I was speaking to an American official earlier who says that they are expecting rallies, but there will certainly be very well attended services in mosques across Jordan. Michelle?
ABC's Alex Marquardt with us from Amman, Jordan. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You can keep up with this story in real time by downloading the ABC News app and starring this story for exclusive updates on the go. This has been International Hotspot. I'm Michelle Franzen in New York.